Hello everyone, my name is Timothy. Welcome back to my role-playing game channel. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas and Happy and Safe New Year. So, before my last video of the last year was me coming back from the Rise of Skywalker, probably a bit flustered. I'm not a movie review channel, it's not really my thing. But I did say that when I got back from my vacation, I would do a Rise of Skywalker video. So here we are. Now, I've been back for probably about a week now, and I've been watching other YouTubers' reviews just to see if there was anything that I had missed in the movie. That, you know, because when I go, I don't go there to analyze movies. I just go there to lose myself and have fun. But I'm not really here to review the movie per se. There are some things I want to talk about, though, that kind of bug me. And by bug me, I mean, see, when I go watch a movie, I put it into RPG terms for everything. Like, when I go watch a Marvel movie, I think of my Marvel Superheroes Advanced set. And, like if I see the Hulk on there, I say, okay, he's got unearthly strength. He hits for this hard. He can jump this far, you know. And then when I see them do something that I know they can't do in the RPG, I get mad. Yeah, it's silly. It really is. I mean, I know as script writers, they're limited only by their imagination, and I know that as movie makers and television show makers, they're only limited by their budgets. So, you know, I know that they're not looking at the RPG and saying, "Oh, well, will this upset the RPG guys?" You know, because they don't care about us. They don't think about us. You know. So, you know, but I do notice that from a lot of the reviews from other YouTubers that a lot of the same things are kind of coming up. And one of them is force Skyping. And I find it interesting because it's not like it's really that new of a thing. And, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm defending The Last Jedi because I'm not, or Last Jedi. Oh God, that's another mess too. I don't want to sound like I'm defending The Rise of Skywalker because I'm not. And I'm also not really here to crap on it either. But as far as, you know, the Force Skyping thing, we first kind of saw that in The Empire Strikes Back. You know, there's two instances I can think of. The first instance was when Luke Skywalker was hanging at the bottom of Cloud City. What was that planet? Bespin? Is that what it's called? I'm not a Star Wars, you know, expert, you know. I'm kind of that outside normie kind of a guy, so I like Star Wars and I also like Star Trek, so both probably think I'm a douchebag. But as far as that, he contacts Leia. He goes, Leia. And then she's in the Millennium Falcon. She goes, Luke. So, you know, she knows he's in trouble because he contacted her using the Force. Now, in the role-playing game, which this is the one I have, the Star Wars, you know, Revised Core Edition, there's a skill in there called telepathy. It's, in order to have this skill, you have to be a level 1 Force user, and you have to be Force sensitive, obviously, and you have to have a feat called the Sense Feat to be able to pick this skill up, to be able to put ranks into the skill. And even if you don't put ranks in the skill, I don't know if this is one you can do untrained or not. It doesn't say where I'm at. I'd have to look at a character sheet. But anyway, so when you basically, I'll read it for you here. I guess I can do that. So, sorry if I got to turn the light over here so I can see. Okay, so basically, you can use this force to establish a mental link with a specific target. Through the link, you can exchange emotions and a single thought, such as go, help, or danger. Now, when Luke first contacts Leia, that's exactly what he uses it for. He says, Leia. And he's probably doing the emotion of maybe despair or dread, like he's in trouble. So that makes perfect sense. But we see it a second time later in the movie, not much later, but when they're on the Millennium Falcon trying to escape at the broken hyperdrive, and Vader is on his ship, and he goes, Luke. And then Luke goes, Father. And, I don't remember if they have like a conversation at that point. It's been a long time since I saw the movie. But, that's another instance where we've seen that. Now, of course, they're not looking at each other like they are in the new movie. And I think I can explain that too. But, it gets above and beyond the role-playing game. Now, the thing about telepathy is it has a range in the RPG. So if Luke were to try and contact, say, Chewbacca or, say, Lando Calrissian or anyone who's not force sensitive, he could do it at a maximum range of 10 meters, 100 meters, or 1,000 meters. Now, that's meters. So 1 meter is approximately 3 feet for us dumb Americans who don't use the metric system. For those of you who might be watching across a pond or somewhere else in the world. So, it's not very far. But to someone who is force sensitive, it goes from meter to kilometer. So it's a lot farther. So it's not that far-fetched to think that Luke could contact Leia on that planet. He could go out as far as 1,000 kilometers, which, that's quite a decent distance. So, depending how far away from the city they were, he'd be able to contact them. The difference is the distance determines how much harder it is to contact in the RPG. I mean, you probably don't want to get bogged down with that stuff. But it's a base DC 10 to contact someone within the 10 meters, 10 kilometers. To go to the next one, which is 100 meters, 100 kilometers, that adds 10 to the difficulty, making it a 20. And the furthest one adds another 10 to that, which is a 30 DC. So you take one 20-sided die, which your maximum roll is a 20, right? And, you add your skill ranks and your attribute bonuses and whatever else like if you have a feat that gives you a bonus to it or, what have you. It's really, obviously, the farther away your person you're trying to contact is, the harder it is to get a hold of them. And that's basically all it is. Now, let's see. The other power I see involved with this Force Skype that they didn't show in The Empire Strikes Back is a power called Farseeing. Now, Farseeing works a little differently because Farseeing doesn't really use a distance per se. It basically, basically you can use the Force to gain vague impressions of events happening in other places or times. And basically, it's basically kind of like precognition in most games. But you can view other people, places, events, that sort of thing. If you're viewing something in the present, I think it's a DC of 10, I believe, or... Oh no, seeing another place is a DC of 15. Seeing events of the past is a DC 20, and seeing events of a possible future is a DC 25. So, now there's no distance limit. It's more of a time limit. So if you combine your telepathy with your far-seeing, then yeah, they could probably force Skype anywhere in the galaxy. And the other thing I want to bring up is, and I don't know the extended universe like, the regular Star Wars fans do. But I know when I first started playing Star Wars The Old Republic, there was a gal in a video who is named Satele Shan. She's a descendant of Bastilla Shan and I think Revan. I don't know. Anyway, she looked like Olivia Wilde had modeled for the character, and I think Olivia Wilde's really attractive. She has really pretty eyes. So I went to Wikipedia to see if that's who portrayed her. And while I was there, I was looking at other stuff for the character. And I looked and I saw that she also had telepathy. But there was an instance, and I don't know if this is based off the extended universe or any of that. And I don't know how accurate Wikipedia is to most Star Wars fans. But anyway, I guess she was able to contact her Padawan through telepathy on the opposite side of the galaxy. So, I mean, obviously, a scriptwriter isn't limited by, by rules. They're limited only by their imagination. And movie makers are kind of just limited by their budget for what they can show. So, and obviously The Empire Strikes Back came out before this RPG did, because the RPG didn't come out until about a little after The Phantom Menace. So it has a little bit of original trilogy and prequel trilogy stuff in it. There are 2 other RPGs out there. One is the original one that came out not long after the original trilogy did. That's a D6 system, and it runs a lot differently, but I mean, it's got a lot of the same stuff in it. And then there's another one I haven't seen or done anything with it, so I can't tell you anything about it. But as far as this RPG is concerned, the Force Skyping looks like kind of a combination of telepathy and far seeing. Now, here's where the movie starts to take some pretty serious liberties, even if you just bend the rules a little bit. So telepathy is a move action power, which means in your basic Star Wars RPG here, you can move and then still attack, right? So if you use your telepathy, then you're not allowed to move, but you can still, say, hit someone with your lightsaber or shoot them with a blaster while you're telling someone to duck. The thing about far-seeing is it's an hour-long process, and you can only do it once a week. Now, that's the difference with far-seeing. Now, I don't know if you can use telepathy and far-seeing at the same time. The game doesn't really say. I would assume far-seeing would be, since it takes an hour, I would guess that would at least be a full round action every round that you're doing it. So I would probably say they probably shouldn't be used together. But, again, filmmakers can do what they want. But I'm just trying to shed a little light to people who don't know the RPG. Like I said, a lot of people are wondering how they are able to do this Force Skype thing. So that's my take on it. Now, on the same thing, while far-seeing would allow, say, Kylo Ren to see Rey on that planet, it does not allow him to grab the necklace off of her, nor does it allow her to pass a lightsaber to him. It does not allow physical objects to move from one point to another. There's just no way to do it. And as far as their fight scenes go through there, the only way I could see to make that work would be as if they both use the illusion power to project illusions of themselves to where the other one was and to fight the illusions. But the movie obviously didn't do that. So that would be the only way I could kind of fake that if I were running the RPG. So, for those of you who want to know about Force Skyping, that's my take on it. The next thing I want to talk about is Force healing. And I find this kind of surprising because we see this one all the way back in the original movie of A New Hope. I'll call your attention to when Obi-Wan chased away the Tusken Raiders, or Sand People, whatever you want to call them, from after they knocked out Luke and started looting through his land speeder. He was laying on the ground. Now, I've done some advanced swimming classes in my youth and some lifeguard training. And when you see a person who's unconscious laying on their back like that, if you want to check to see if they're okay, one thing you do is you'll kneel down beside them and you'll take your ear and you'll kind of put it near their mouth so that you can feel whether they're breathing. And then you'll look down their sternum at the same time to see if you can see their chest rising and falling to see if they actually are breathing. To check the pulse, you'll just kind of like put your over their, I can't get this through. You put your fingers over like their wrist, or you can check the carotid artery to see if their pulse is beating. Now, that's not what Obi-Wan Kenobi did, though, is it? He actually kind of, I don't want to say face-palmed him, but, he put his hand on his head, and then he kind of cocked his head back, and you can't really see it because he has the hood on, and then it kind of looked like he prayed a little bit, right? So, in my RPG, I don't know if I can show it to you, but I'll try. Here we are. So, here's where the heal another entry is, and you see the picture there, right? So I think that's what he was actually doing, was some force healing. Now, there's two types of healing in the force. There's healing other people and there's healing yourself. Heal another, basically the type of damage is going to depend on what it costs you as a force user to heal that damage. So like if you're just stabilizing a dying character, you need a DC of 10 to 14 on your heal another check, and it costs you 1 vitality point to do it. I did forget to mention the vitality points thing. We'll get to that in a minute. If you want to just store vitality points are kind of like your cuts, your scrapes, your bruises, because this game gives you 2 sets of health, kind of like the Palladium Books does. And then you have what's called wound points. Wound points is like your punctured lungs, your broken legs, the more serious stuff. A character's wound points is usually equal to their constitution score, and unless they take the toughness feat, which adds 3, that's 1 crit can take you out most of the time, especially if you have a low con. On the other hand, vitality points, characters can have quite a few. I think Darth Vader has like 130, and his wound points, I think, are around 17. So, if you get a good crit on Vader, you might one-shot him. Admittedly, it's not that easy. Heal another is just healing damage on another person. And healing damage on another person will always cost you vitality points. Whereas if you're healing yourself, healing wound damage on yourself will cost you vitality points, but healing vitality damage on yourself is free. The problem with healing another and healing yourself is you can only do it once an hour. So it's not like something that's going to happen a lot. Maybe it's that quick heal you need in the middle of battle to finish the fight, but if you can't put them away, you're kind of screwed after that. So that's where that ball bounces. So as for healing people, the force healing, that's not really that new. It is a light side force skill, so only someone who's on the light side of the force would probably know how to use it. Now, a lot of people would say, well, where would Kylo learn to use this? He was trained by Luke Skywalker, who was a light side force user. So it's possible he learned it from him. Now, the big question is, where did Rey learn it? Now, here's the thing about Rey. Now, everyone has their own take. This is my take. Now, Rey starts out a lot like Luke Skywalker in the Force Awakens, a class that the game calls a Fringer. Kind of like a junk collector, living in a fringe world, the Fringer. Now, I think that's what she was as a class. Now, at the point where she gets captured by Kylo Ren and interrogated, maybe she had enough XP to make a level. Now, she didn't have anyone to train her in the Force, so her Force abilities seem to appear as a natural, they just kind of came out of nowhere. And the only way to really explain that is not that she's a daughter of Palpatine or a Skywalker. I mean, the Skywalker would help, at least RPG-wise. But to explain that she is what's called a Force Adept. A Force Adept is kind of like a primitive Force user. They rely less on training. I mean, it's not to say that they don't need training, because that would be probably false. But, it would be like an Ewok shaman. Like, it's someone who doesn't adhere to the Jedi code, but they can still use the Force. You still have to keep track of light side and dark side, but, you don't have that Jedi code that you have to follow. You just kind of, most of the time you're just doing what you're doing for your tribe or whatever. And if you're a traveling Force Adept, maybe some people might say the Witches of Endor are Force Adepts. There's a lot of different takes on the Force Adept. So if I had to guess, that's what Rey is a Force Adept. It is a level, she had to start out at level 1 Force Adept at some point. She could be level 1 Fringer and maybe level 1 Force Adept, and that would allow her to pick up, say, the Sense feat. Now, maybe she picked up Force Sensitive as a first level feat. Maybe she didn't pick it up until 3rd level. She can't really use Force powers without it, so I just assume she had it at 1st level. If you go with their storyline, I assume she had it. So that would explain how Rey is, also able to use force healing, because force healing requires a force-sensitive feat, and it requires the alter feat. Alter feat is a different feat from sense. Sense allows you to sense things like the sense of disturbance in the force. It kind of gives you a sixth sense, so you can't really be surprised if you have it. That's what's really nice about it. The alter feats allow you to affect things around you. Heal another is an alter feat, and I believe heal self is a control. Yeah, heal another. If you want to do the force to literally anyone else, you need the alter feat. All your attack ones from the force, like force lightning, force choke, which they call force grip in this, those are all alter feats. Even when Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, he did like that force illusion. That's an alter feat ability. It's so you need that to be able to do those, to affect other people. Your things that affect you though, like battle mind or enhance ability or heal self, those are control feats because you're controlling the force through you. So I'm probably not the best guy to do all these explanations, but I'm trying. Anyway, so the thing is that force healing isn't that new. It's been around for a long time. And, people, and that's the only way I can explain how those two know how to force heal. Kylo was taught it through Luke Skywalker, and Rey just kind of osmosed it, and, they didn't do a lot of training with Luke Skywalker and Rey. You could say off screen he taught it to her. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could make up in your mind how it works, but the simple fact is you shouldn't have to go to another book or story to learn what happened in the movie. The movie should do an adequate job explaining things. I'm kind of on that same fence with a lot of those other guys. But because I know the RPG pretty well, I can kind of come up with the explanations myself. I got that imagination to do it. So that explains the force healing. Force lightning. Oh boy, do we got to talk about force lightning. Oh, do we got to talk force lightning. So force lightning. So any of you remember Return of the Jedi when Luke is getting the electric chicken treatment? The Emperor's hitting him with force lightning. How, it's painful, right? It causes damage. Let me tell you what force lightning does. You can draw upon the dark side of the force to blast one or more targets with deadly bolts of energy. Now, it said one or more targets. That means it's more than one person. So the thing is that it means you can hit a whole group of people. Maybe not a huge group, but, maybe 3 to 4 people, depending how close they are. The thing about force lightning is it has a range of 10 meters or 30 feet. So yes, you know where we're alluding to this when he goes and shoots it up into the sky and hits the fleet. Guess what? No. Force lightning does not have that kind of range. In fact, he's lucky if he could hit Rey with it at that distance. The thing about force lightning is it's like magic missile from Dungeons and Dragons. It always hits. As long as it's in range, it hits. So the person who gets hit by force lightning has to make what's called a reflex save to get out of the area of effect. It doesn't mean you don't take damage. It means you take half damage. Force lightning does 3 8-sided dice, which is 3d8 for us RPG people. It maxes out at 24 points of damage. A lightsaber normally does 2d8 in the hands of an inexperienced or young Jedi or someone who isn't a Jedi at all. So it's a little more of a hit than a lightsaber, but you don't get a saving throw with a lightsaber. So in the end, if you're shooting at, say, if you're hitting a scoundrel with it, they usually have pretty good reflex saves. Your Jedi Guardians have pretty good reflex saves. Consulars, not so much. And other classes, not so much. Usually your dex-based blaster types, they have pretty good reflex saves. Here's the thing about force lightning. Like I said, it's 10 meters long and it cones out at 6 meters. So you're not going to shoot a fleet in space from a planet's surface. Not going to happen. Not in the RPG anyway. So the other thing about force lightning is that It's been broken for a while. Force lightning is a dark side power, so it does corrupt you as it channels through you. But the corruption is not immediate. And my biggest gripe about force lightning comes from, well, it comes from Revenge of the Sith. And so when the Emperor is force lightning Mace Windu and he's deflecting it with this lightsaber, first off, you're not able to deflect it with your lightsaber in the RPG. It just doesn't work that way. I don't care what anyone says. Yes, it looks cool. Yes, it's badass, but it's not a legit thing. It's only a movie and cartoon thing, I guess, or video game thing. You really can't do it with that in the RPG. Again, movies can do what they want, and you can do what you want too. But from an RPG standpoint, it's not something that happens. So getting hit by force lightning does not cause you to look old and decrepit. Luke Skywalker is proof of that because he didn't look old and decrepit after getting zapped several times. And having force lightning brought back on you from being deflected from a lightsaber, which they can't do anyway, that does not make you look old and decrepit. What makes you look old and decrepit is when you level, okay? So let's just say you're Kylo Ren and you go from, say, 5th level Jedi Guardian to a 6th level, which then you decide to become your 1st level of Sith or whatever it is. At 5th level, before you go to 6th level, you have to make a saving throw of how many dark side points you have. This is only force sensitive people have to do this. They're the only ones. And if you have, say, 2 dark side points, it's a DC 10 plus your number of dark side points in a fortitude save. So if you roll that save or higher, nothing bad happens to you, okay? So it doesn't matter how many dark side points you have. If you make the save, you're fine. You can be as evil as you want to be as long as you make the save. What happens if you don't make the save? Well, that's why the Emperor looks like that, because he doesn't have a very good fortitude save. I mean, it's good because he's high level, but in his earlier days, it probably wasn't that good, and that's why he looks like that. So what happens when you fail to save is you lose 1 point of either strength, dexterity, or constitution. Yeah, you take 1 point from one of them. At the next time you level, you make the saving throw again. And as long as you have dark side points, you have to do this every time you make a level. And if you fail to save a second time, you take another point, but not from the same attribute. It has to be from a different one. And it's only the physical attributes, not the mental ones. So this is why they say the dark side of the Force corrupts you, because it wrecks your body. So that's kind of the thing on Force lightning. They make it very overpowered in the final trilogy, and they make it kind of pansy-ish in the prequel trilogy. I mean, not that it's really all that tough anyway. 3d8 isn't that much damage. I mean, it is if you're first level, it hurts. But, if you're like, by that point, Luke was like 7th or 8th level. So, I mean, it wasn't like it was a lot of damage for him. The other thing, light speed skipping. So I think they explained it best in the original trilogy when they explained the hazards of jumping the ship without an astrogation check. Basically, light speed skipping seems to be a rushed astrogation check, and it's not good. Let me tell you. A regular astrogation DC is typically pretty tough. I guess it depends where you're going and where, a lot of it's location. It's not necessarily that dangerous. It depends on whether you have a nav computer, an astromech droid, and updated maps. Those are the big bonuses or penalties, depending on what you got there. But light speed skipping to me looks like they're just going from A to B real fast using light speed, and they're not using the nav computer. And Han Solo said it best. You could wind up, in a black hole or into a planet, and that would cut your trip short real quick, wouldn't it? And he's right, because that's a very real thing. I'm not going to really go kind of tell you every little thing that could happen, because there's a lot. But, I mean, it's not like a lot. But, I mean, several bad things could happen. So, you know, the thing about light speed skipping, I mean, you could do it in the RPG. I don't recommend you do it in the RPG. That would be bad. I mean, you'll get your ship messed up in a hurry if you do it in the RPG. Especially if you have a real douche for a GM. So, yeah, those are the things that a lot of people are talking about the Rise of Skywalker. They're talking about a lot of other things, too. But, you know, that's nothing really that I have any knowledge on. So I'm going to end the video with, you know, the usual. If you like the video, hit a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, put your thumbs down or don't do anything at all. You know, if you have any comments or questions, you know, leave them down below. You know, if you want to support the channel, I got my Patreon. I'll put it in the link in the description for you. If there's anything maybe in the movie that you might want to check. Oh, yeah, that reminds me. I was watching, I don't know what they're called. I think they're called Armored Media. But it's Shoe on Head and Armored Skeptic together. They do movie reviews. And they did one on Rise of Skywalker. And they caught something in the movie that I completely missed. I guess someone shot a TIE fighter out of the air with a bow. So that's interesting. And I kind of want to touch on that a minute. I'm not saying you can do that in this RPG, because that's pretty unlikely if I remember stats. Let me give me a minute to look here. Let's see, a bow. A bow does 1d8 in damage, so you cap out at 8. Now, you can have things like Mastercraft items. These would be like magic items in D&D kind of a thing. It's just really well built, and they can go up to a +3. On weapons, it adds up to +3 in damage. If it's a Mastercraft +1, it does +1. So armor adds to the DR of the armor. So let's take a look at our TIE fighter here. Oh, good. Almost right to the page. Here we are, TIE fighter. Okay. So here's the thing about a TIE fighter. It has no shield, so when you shoot a TIE fighter, all the damage is going to go straight to the hull. If you were to compare a TIE fighter to a character, it would be like a character who has no vitality points. Hull points are like wound points for ships. And shield points are like vitality points for ships. So anyway, it has 60 hull points with a DR of 10. Now, obviously, a regular bow isn't going to do any damage to a TIE fighter hull. Even if you roll max damage, it's only 8. Minus 10 is -2. If you're using a Mastercraft +3 bow, though, you could get 1 point through. So, not to make anyone angry, it is possible to shoot a TIE fighter out of the sky with a bow and arrow. You have to roll max damage with a +3 Mastercraft bow, and you have to do that 60 times in a row. Maybe not in a row, but you have to do it 60 times before it kills you. By the way, a TIE fighter shooting a person does 5d10 times 2. So good luck. Alright, anyway, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, thumbs down. Feel free to support the channel through Patreon. And last but not least, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Anything you want RPG kind of stuff with, you know, feel free to make a request. I don't mind. My New Year's resolution was to make more videos this year. So help me keep my resolution, and I hope your new year is great and full of fun and joy, and I'll see you next time.